200 days in hardcore modded Minecraft. For this challenge, we set the bar even higher, and we have 3 new goals. First, craft full Onyx Armor. Second, defeat a Sea Serpent, the king of the ocean. And our last objective, go to the Twilight Forest and defeat a Stage 4 dragon. There are 5 stages of dragons in this mod pack. Stage 5 being the strongest of the dragons. And when defeated, Stage 4 dragons have a chance to drop a dragon egg. Wish us luck, cause we're gonna need it. Day 101 to 105, we began preparing to build the lumberjack house. This lumberjack house is going to provide us another source of energy, just like the windmill. We were also going to store all of our logs, planks, and other wooden materials here. After finishing off the lumberjack house, we only had a few more things to do. We crafted a saw, hooked that up to the windmill, sawed some wooden planks in half, and then used the sawed wooden planks to make a water wheel. We then hooked up the water wheel to the side of the lumberjack house and powered that with a water stream. This would provide us a stable source of energy so that we had a saw running at all times. We thought that the lumberjack house turned out fairly well. On days 106 to 111, we set out to find a water temple, and after a good 4 days of searching, we finally found one. Since we didn't have water breathing potions, we decided to use the torch method to keep ourselves alive underwater. Basically, you just place a torch on the side of the wall, which gives you an air pocket for a fraction of a second, restoring your bubbles to full. After a bit more searching, we finally ran into our first Elder Guardian. The Elder Guardians actually dealt a lot of damage because of the thorns they had, so every time you hit them, you would take some damage. So we took turns fighting the Elder Guardian so that neither one of us would take too much damage at once. After defeating the last Elder Guardian, this cured our debuff that we had that prevented us from mining while in the water temple. So we found the sponge room and got all the sponge. From days 112 to 116, we found hippocampuses and used the sponge to tame the hippocampus. Hippocampus are basically like giant seahorses, and after you tame them, you can put a saddle on them, and they're the fastest moving creatures in the entire ocean. After returning back to base on day 117, Painful fenced off an area for the hippocampuses to stay in, and I helped light up the surrounding area. We also put cobble fencing around our entire village. So for the rest of day 117, we placed the rest of our cobblestone walls around our village, and our village is coming along nicely. From days 118 to 120, we set out to look for some sirens. We made sure to use our hippocampuses to travel around the ocean quickly. We ended up running straight into a pack of sirens, which lure you in with their songs. They ended up being weaker than we expected, but we ended up getting some shiny scales from them. We're gonna use these shiny scales in a future crafting recipe. Once we returned to base, we figured it was time to look for some onyx in the nether. We spent the next 7 days looking for onyx and found a few veins here and there, but it was really hard to find. Also, to mine onyx, you needed a mithril pickaxe. Luckily, I had taken one, but Painful had forgotten his mithril pickaxe at the base. Also, this block that kind of looks like netherite actually isn't for some reason. It's called syncinnicite, which is kind of strange, but it's apparently used for decoration. So, after 7 days of looking and mining onyx, this stuff was really difficult to find, so for the next 2 days, we settled on only crafting the boots and the helmet for each of us, and we also enchanted our new pieces of onyx. After enchanting on day 131, we set out to find a Myrmex Queen, which after 6 days of long searching through caves and mine shafts, we finally found one. There was also treasure throughout the Myrmex Queen's lair, and we made sure to steal all the gold and silver. We then began to approach the Myrmex Queen's den. We were anticipating a tough battle, so we drank our potions and went in to fight it. But we needed to fend off some of the Myrmex Queen's minions first in order to actually get to her. Painful went around her and I went in for a hit and barely dodged her massive stinger. So I backed off a bit, but then a Myrmex sentinel started attacking me, which was really fast. Realizing I shouldn't get anywhere near that stinger, I started using my mithril bow to land some shots. As I was shooting the mithril bow, Painful went in from behind and froze the Myrmex Queen in its place so I could get even more shots to land. Painful barely dodged a Myrmex Queen sting, and after he got away, the Myrmex Queen got stuck in the opening, so I used my bow to defeat the Myrmex Queen. We then stole all the loot from the Myrmex Queen's lair, and after 2 days of traveling back, we made it back safely to base. On day 141, we harvested and moved all the farms to behind our base. Since it was winter, we needed to place blocks above the water in order to prevent it from freezing into ice. On day 142, we started to build the Aether Portal, which is basically the reverse of a nether portal, and you light it with water. And once we were prepared with potions and blocks, we went through the Aether Portal. The Aether is a dimension high up in the sky, which has a bunch of floating islands all around. Our portal actually spawned on top of a cloud, so we had to be very careful when going down the cloud. So I landed on a tree and we began to explore the Aether. The Aether had some really interesting mobs. There was a really strange plant-looking mob and a flying whale. There was also these strange ostrich-looking mobs, which were called moas. There seemed to be an echo to every sound we had heard in the Aether. After 3 days of exploring, we ended up finding a stronghold. For some reason, we couldn't place down torches, and Painful defeated some weird-looking mob known as a wight. We also looted the chest, which had some strange-looking tools that we'd never seen before. We then found another chest, which I tried looting, but then the chest started trying to eat me, so we killed the chest. That weird-looking block thing we thought was a boss, so we drank our potions before entering the room. When I tried attacking it with my saber, it said in the chat, perhaps I need to attack it with a pickaxe. So I switched out to my pickaxe, and it turns out you could only hit it with a pickaxe. Go figure. This had to be one of the strangest bosses I've ever fought. Eyes on all sides, and it's just sliding around. That's some weird name that I could barely pronounce. Untitled Chapter? How do you even say that? I have no idea. Anyways, after a while, this boss just sliding around and us mining it with our pickaxe, we ended up defeating it. It ended up dropping a key, which we realized was used for the chest underneath the trapdoors. And after unlocking it, we found some really cool loot inside, including a flame sword, lightning knives, and a cloud staff. Painful ended up testing the flame sword on me, and I actually burned for a pretty long time. So, as revenge, I ended up testing the cloud staff on him, which did a cool animation, but didn't actually do too much damage. After returning back to base, it was already nighttime. We were fighting some evil-looking moas called Kalenks, which shot arrows that would disorient us. The spiders looked really creepy in the Aether as well. So, we started gathering some of the skyroot wood, and fought an ice blaze, which actually drops a frost rod instead of a blaze rod. So from days 149 to 153, we decided to build our base. At first, we looked around for a spot, but decided on just building it around our portal in the cloud. We had to be very careful while building this base, because if we fell, we would fall back into the overworld, and there was no telling whether we would fall on the water or solid land. And after about 4 days, we had finished our base. It wasn't anything too fancy, but we made sure to install some glass windows so we could look out into the Aether. We also had some blueberry bushes right outside our base, which is good for a food source. After returning to the overworld, we spent the next 4 days searching for a skeleton lord, but ended up running into a dungeon instead. We were really far away from our base, so we still wanted to be careful, but we decided on breaking the spawners and fought some goblins as well. We also ran into a golden treasure slime, which dropped golden apples when we killed it. We also found a strange creature called a stoneling, which was carrying an emerald, so Painful killed it and took the emerald. Painful being so cruel. But we looted the chest and found a saddle, some gold, and some return potions. So we used these return potions to our advantage, drank them, and it sent us straight back to our beds. From days 159 to 160, we started working on the roads between all of our major structures and built a road which connected our village to the village nearby. From days 161 to 168, we prepared ourselves for battle with the Sea Serpent. Being one of our 3 main goals, we wanted to make sure to prepare as much as possible. So after enchanting and getting all of our potions ready, we took our hippocampuses out and began searching for a Sea Serpent. Unfortunately, while searching for a sea serpent, we ran into a group of sharks, and our hippocampuses got eaten. We made some boats instead, and kept on trekking along with our boats. It wasn't long until we ran straight into a sea serpent. So, we quickly turned around, kited away, and made sure to drink our potions before entering the battle. We went straight in, and the sea serpent wasn't even focused on us. It was going straight for a whale, so we seized the opportunity and started attacking it from behind. For some reason, it just kept on running, so we kept chasing it. And then, all of a sudden, it killed some sort of fish and locked straight onto Painful. He was landing hits, but the sea serpent started doing big damage to him and flipped into the air. So I went in for a hit of my own, and Painful started popping golden apples, trying to out-heal the damage that it was dealing. I noticed he started getting really low. I tried going in for an attack, but the sea serpent started doing some crazy flips. I knew this was my chance, so I threw my instant health on Painful, and it healed him back to full HP. The fight wasn't over yet though, and the sea serpent is capable of dealing out some serious damage. But then, the sea serpent just started derping in place, so we took advantage of that and started doing some big damage to it. Not really sure what it was doing, but all of a sudden it did a huge flip, and by then it was already so low that Painful dealt the last hit, and that was it. We had defeated our first sea serpent. Not to mention, it also dropped some sea serpent scales. On days 169 to 173, after returning to base, we decided to go to the nether. We returned to the nether fortress with our gear being much better and fought a bunch of wither skeletons to try and get wither skeleton skulls. We continued fighting them them for about 4 days and found some strange looking totem. After admiring it for a little bit, I mined it and it was called the Statue of Reincarnation. No idea what the heck this is used for, but it looks pretty cool. After a while, we ended up getting the wither skeleton skulls we needed and went back to the overworld to fight the wither. We prepared ourselves a little room in a cave to fight the wither in so that we wouldn't destroy our base. We popped our golden apples, our potions, and then I placed the last wither skeleton skull, spawning in the wither. Painful tried freezing it, but it's actually immune at the start, so it didn't work. He even tried freezing it again, but for some reason, it just wasn't working. Using my mithril shield to block its attacks and my diamond saber to dish damage, we started chipping down the wither slowly but surely. In this mod pack, the wither actually spawns in wither skeletons to fight for it, which makes it even harder. Painful trying to freeze it again accidentally froze me, but luckily it didn't get me killed. I ate another golden apple to be safe, and we kept on dealing damage. Thankfully, our armor was holding up really well, and after a while of fighting it, we ended up defeating the wither. So, checking the loot, not only did another star drop, but a lot of other things dropped, including some sort of charm, magic powder, and even some onyx. Days 174 to 182, we decided to go back to the Beneath and search for a stronghold. After a long while of searching, we finally saw one in the distance and went straight for it. Luckily, there was a water stream there for us, so we swam up and went into the stronghold. We immediately found a cake and a chest. You already know I'm taking those cookies. We then found these levers which we thought would open a secret room, but all it did was turn on the light. We then found what looked to be a lower layer of the stronghold. We saw some netherrack, and Painful immediately pearled down, and I put down a water bucket. I then saw this pressure plate which I stepped on, which almost pushed me down. Luckily, I had placed the water bucket first. After swimming down the stream of water, it was in fact a second layer. There was nether brick everywhere, and there was already some goblins attacking Painful. We then found a room with a bunch of chests in it and a wither skeleton. We then checked the chests and saw some amazing loot. A Sharpness 5 Fire Aspect 2 Unbreaking 3 Diamond Sword, and a bunch of other goodies, including some enchanted books with some really nice enchantments. We then found what looked to be the main room, which had a bunch of magma blocks, and there was mobs spawning from the ceiling. There even seemed to be creeper spawners, as there was a bunch of creepers that started blowing everything up. The spawners were right above us, so I started breaking them one by one. We tried to salvage as much loot as we could, but a lot of it had already gotten blown up. After a few days, we had returned back to base. And from days 183 to 186, we had a new goal in mind. We were going to create an underwater base. We used the shipwreck as a center point and started building around it with glass. After placing a lot of glass and removing a bunch of coral, we started to drain out the water from the glass dome. We used some of the leftover sponge from the water temple we went to in order to make this a lot easier on ourselves. Also, to turn the wet sponge back into normal sponge, all we had to do was pop it into a furnace. Once we finished draining out all the water from the glass dome, we took down the shipwreck with our axes. Our entrance to the underwater base was underneath our bridge and was a staircase that led down straight into it. We weren't entirely sure what we wanted to make this into, so leave your suggestions down in the comments. From days 187 to 190, we began our search for the Ender Dragon. The Ender Eye pointed us in the direction of the ocean, so we took our boats and started making our way towards the stronghold. After a few days of boating and throwing our Ender Eyes, we threw an Ender Eye and I did not see it go into the air, so I was guessing it must have went underneath me. So we went into the water to double check and realized it was right beneath us. So we began mining down, found a cave, and immediately found the stronghold. There was some strange looking Herobrine ghost. When you hit it, it would just teleport away. Not really sure what the heck it was. After a little while of searching the stronghold, we had finally found the end portal. Painful seems to have an obsession with mining spawners. Anyways, we placed the Ender Eyes into the end portal frames, and the end portal made a pretty scary sound. We then entered the end portal with only one way out. Looked around to make sure there was nothing out of the ordinary, and we began our assault on the Ender Dragon. We of course started by taking out the end crystals on top of the pillars, and we quickly noticed that the Ender Dragon did not look like the vanilla Ender Dragon. There was also a disturbing amount of Endermen chasing the Ender Dragon for some reason. After taking out all the end crystals, the Ender Dragon perched above the portal, and now was our chance. We potted our strength potions and began attacking it as much as we could. While attacking the Ender Dragon, I noticed some weird looking end blazes in the background. Not really sure what those were. The Ender Dragon then spun around, we got a few more hits in, and then it flew away. We used our mithril bows to do some damage while it was in the air, and then finally it landed back on the perch. We popped our strength potions again and went in to finish it off. And just like that, we had done it. We had defeated the Ender Dragon. It dropped a ton of loot on the ground, which we scrambled to pick up. Luckily, we picked up most of it and went through the end portal back to our base. This also put us all the way to level 63, so I made sure to save the levels for later. We also got some interesting loot, including an advanced ender pearl. Now that we had defeated the ender dragon and the wither, it was time to craft the gas queen's tears, which would allow us to get to the Twilight Forest. So we went to our portal room and started building the portal. This required to put flowers around a 2x2 square, and I had forgotten one flower, so I had to grab that. Then you place water in all four corners and throw in the gas queen's tears, opening the entrance to the Twilight Forest. Immediately, we spotted something strange in the distance. We weren't sure what it was, and all of a sudden, a dragon popped out of nowhere. We knew dragons were in the Twilight Forest, but we were not expecting to run into one this fast. So, we made a run for it. Luckily, the dragon flew up into the air, so I started bowing it, but that just seemed to have pissed it off. I landed a few more bow shots and then ate a golden apple, just to be safe. The dragon let out a menacing roar. We kept bowing it, and then the dragon came forward and landed. So Painful started drinking its potions, but I just wanted to run, as it was clearly pissed off at me. So I drank a speed potion and started bowing it while running away. Painful was starting to hit it from behind since it was focused on me. Now that we had a closer look, this dragon was huge and was clearly either a stage 4 or even stage 5 dragon. I jumped across the river using my depth strider and kept on bowing it over and over. The terrain was helping a lot, and the fact that it was aggroed onto me allowed Painful to do a lot of damage. For some reason, this goose just started attacking me. It seems to have gotten stuck in the water, so we kept on bowing it, and then Painful went in for a freeze. Painful had frozen it, which helped a lot, and he got a few hits in. The dragon broke out of the ice and started breathing fire onto me, so I ate a golden apple and started running away again. I repotted my potions and kept on running. I accidentally shot Painful, but Painful had done so much damage already that the dragon was defeated. And just like that, our last objective was complete. We went to loot the dragon, got a bunch of scales and dragon bones from it. We then examined the dragon skull and found out it was in fact a stage 4 dragon. If that was a stage 4 dragon, imagine a stage 5. So we went back to where we found it and found a dragon's den. We looted what was inside, which was a bunch of gold, silver, and other goodies. After spending the day looting the den, we spent another day building our base. Just like the Aether, our base wasn't too fancy, but it was functional. Put a bunch of chests and furnaces inside. After finishing the base, we were not satisfied with defeating that one dragon. We didn't even get an egg from it. While exploring, we found this massive fortress, and then I got a huge lag spike. I wasn't really sure why, but a massive dragon just popped out of nowhere again. We had gotten so distracted by the huge fortress, we didn't even notice the dragon's den. So we both drank our potions, and this time it was aggroed on the Painful. So I started attacking it immediately. And I was pretty sure I just pissed it off again. This one was just as big as the last one. It switched aggro to me, and I took some huge damage. I just needed to make a run for it. This terrain was definitely not as good as the last terrain, but we had to employ the same strategy. It started breathing fire onto me, and I started taking some huge damage, so I splashed down a ton of potions. Thankfully, that seemed to slow down the dragon, and Painful started doing some big damage. The dragon then started doing some drive-by fire breaths, and then landed again and started coming straight for us. Or should I say, straight for me. I landed some bow shots and just started running again, letting Painful do some damage in the back. I kept on holding the aggro and running, and Painful kept doing damage. Our strategy was working perfectly. This seemed to be just as hard as the previous one, so we were assuming this was a stage 4 dragon too. The dragon all of a sudden closed the distance and picked me up in his mouth. I shook my way out, and Painful landed the killing blow. For some reason, when it picked me up in its mouth, this glitched my game, and I couldn't see my armor or Painful's armor, or even the weapons we were holding in our hands. But it was just a visual glitch, and we actually were still wearing our armor. So we looted the dragon, got a bunch of scales again, and we had gotten what we were looking for, a dragon egg. So we went back to base, and on day 200, we had finally done it. I wonder if this egg will hatch. If you'd like to see us do another 100 days, leave a like on this video, and leave a comment. Thanks for watching, and have yourselves a good day.